Welcome to Rucks, Malls and Overrules. We're back, and it's episode 29 of the fans' favourite rugby podcast, hosted by the fans' favourite rugby podcast hosts. And this time, it's me, Dave, Som's gallbladder, joined, as ever, by, with gallbladder, I assume, Rory. Rory, say hello to the listener.
Hi, listeners. Hi, I'm just sat here with my gallbladder, feeling very, very smug.
Showing off. Well, what's life like with a gallbladder, Rory? Because I wouldn't know.
Do you know what? I've never been more grateful for it. It's really bringing a light to my life, and I just feel so sad for you that you don't have one anymore. Because I think my gallbladder is my best friend. And I never really knew that until you didn't have one.
Well, it's just made me sad, Rory. I'll be all right. I can now start eating food that, isn't solely kale and spinach. So I'm happy. Because my gallbladder was not my best friend. That was the issue, Rory. The gallbladder was
You had a real falling out. Yeah, you had a real falling out with yours, didn't you?
Really falling out.
I keep mine on side, and I urge the listeners to do the same.
Quite rightly. But, what a dull tangent to go down to start off the podcast, Rory. Let's get on to something more interesting. This podcast. Because there's a lot going on. Even though our bread and butter of the Premiership rugby is in kind of, hibernation at the moment, there's a lot going on. And we're going to talk Lions, we're going to talk England, and we're actually going to talk a bit of Premiership.
Absolutely.
And if we've got a little bit of time, maybe a bit of under-20s, we'll see. We'll see how we're doing for time, because time is precious. But let's get cracking, Rory. I want to start off. So I know Lions, hot topic, games coming thick and fast. I think the right thing to do is going into the first weekend of the full test, just give me your overall view of where the Lions are at right now.
I think broad picture, I think they're in a good place. I think some questions have been answered over the last couple of games against the Brumbies and against the Invitational AUNZ side in terms of who's right for the tests. There's obviously a couple of interesting developments have happened in terms of call-ups that I'm sure we'll get into. But broadly speaking, I think the Lions are in a good place, but they do still have some questions, I think, hanging over them in terms of whether whether they've been sufficiently tested in every game, whether the game plan is solid enough to replicate against a full test side. The game at the weekend, I hate to say it because you should never really have this feeling when it's a Lions tour, but I was quite underwhelmed by the game on Saturday. I really enjoyed the Brumbies game.
Yeah,
I thought that was a really
that was a good test.
That was as close to a test match outside of the Argentina game as they've had, and I thought it really shone a light on some of the players who were ready to be full test Lions. I thought the game at the weekend, it probably exposed a few that aren't in that position, and we can go through a few of those. But as a spectacle, I don't think it lived up to the hype. I don't think it quite worked, which is a shame because it was a really, really interesting idea, an exciting idea, but it didn't really have the impact that I thought we were hoping for.
So are you not buying into the hype that we're seeing in the media around how Lions nilled the opponents, the best of Australia and New Zealand? There's obviously been a bit of an effort to put in to say this was a real good test of some of the players to show that the Lions are in a good position. Are you not buying that narrative?
No, I understand why that narrative is there. And on paper, it looks good in terms of just looking at the scoreline, the selections. I thought the reality of the game didn't really play out that way. I thought with the best one in the world, the AUNZ side was underwhelming. I'm going to say I don't want to say harsher than that, but I actually thought it wasn't as much of a test as you would have hoped from the selection itself. No, it's not. It's not all negative. It's not like it's a negative out and out. I thought, there was some players who really, really stood up. I thought Ben Earl had his best game on tour and really put his hands up to make the test squad. I thought the Hewitt Pilotu centre partnership probably just edged itself ahead of Gary Ringrose. I think is going to be concussed for this game, so that probably gave Hugh Jones that opportunity. Plus, I think Tui Pilotu probably just edged ahead of Bundy Eki for me.
Yeah.
I thought Ben White really impressed and really took his opportunity to say that I should have been selected in the first place. And there were calls for that when the original selection was made, and I thought he took his opportunity. P.S. Skuman probably had his best game on tour.
Yeah.
By some distance, actually. But outside of that, I was a bit underwhelmed, really. Owen Farrell, I think, probably silenced a little bit of the negativity, although just off the bat, I'm going to say the boos when he came on screen and came onto the pitch. If they're the locals, the home team supporters, fair enough, no problems with it whatsoever. If reports are right that there were Lions fans booing Owen Farrell, give your head a wobble or give up your ticket, because that is a disgrace as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, if you've paid all that money to go out there and you're going to boo one of your own players, that's a bit wild.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've had a few interactions with people who've been making claims that Ben White should be the starting test 9 off the back of that performance. Owen Farrell should be in the test squad, which maybe I think is probably more likely to happen.
Yeah.
Whether I believe that it should be what's happening, I can see it happening.
Yeah.
Are people getting too ahead of themselves off the back of one performance where the result looks better than what the performance probably was? I also think what this game has shown is how difficult in this professional era these amateur legacy ideas like the Lions Tour and putting together scratch teams are, how difficult it is to do that successfully against teams that spend time together week in, week out. So on one hand, it shows how impressive a Lions Tour is when we do become competitive against established international sides. But it does ring a question in my head, Rory, of although I absolutely love the Lions, and this is a question I'm asking purely for the controversial take, does the Lions Tour work going forward in this professional modern era where the professionalism and how clubs are... We've seen some of these sides like the Brumbies, they're very well organised. It makes warm-up games just as difficult as the international games. We saw Lions lose against Argentina. Do things from amateur legacy days like the Lions Tour work in professional rugby going forwards? And another angle I want to ask about is because Andy Farrell is Ireland's head coach, does that stop him coaching to the best of his ability? Because he doesn't want to give away all of his trade secrets to the English, Scottish and Welsh teams, because the other 4 years of the cycle, does he want to give away all of his secrets so then Ireland are going to lose out because of that?
Okay, so I think there's three prongs to attack there. So I think the first point in terms of the amateurish invitational sides, the invitational AUNZ side, let's say it's more akin to the Barbarians than it is the Lions, right? Yeah. And I think there is an argument to say that the Barbarians, as special as it is, isn't offering as much to the rugby calendar as... Well, it's certainly not offering as much as it did in the amateur days. That's indisputable. Whether it's offering even enough to be considered worthwhile, I think that's a really interesting question. And look, I love the Barbarians as part of the history of rugby union, but it would be foolish to suggest that a Barbarians game has the same draw, has the same challenge to establish sides, and whether it holds the same kind of special place in the hearts of players to go and play. And you can see that really by the general squad selections. It's not, as it used to be, a selection of the best players in the region. It's now some of the best players, usually the ones who are retiring, and some fringe players, some decent club players, and it's no disrespect to the players who do participate in the Barbarians. They have a great time, I'm sure, and I'm sure it does still hold a special place for them on the day. But whether it's offering enough, that's probably more up for question, and maybe the Barbarians and these invitational sides are slightly running their course in terms of the wider game. The Lions, I think, is a slightly different prospect because a lot of accommodation is made to make the Lions as competitive a squad as possible in terms of if you look at how much time they're given training pre-tour, the kind of warm-up games against the likes of Argentina, and how important that was to Argentina in particular. I think if you were starting again, you probably wouldn't create a Lions side, right?
No.
But I do think the nature of it, how important it is to the nations that it visits, which you could argue it needs to be expanded, but that's probably a different debate. And if you look over the last few tours, probably discounting 2005 in our lifetime, they've all been either very competitive or Lions have won or drawn them. I think the Lions still holds up. It's weird. It's objectively weird.
Yeah.
No other
but sport does anything similar.
Yeah, it's the eccentricities. The eccentricities of it are what makes it quite special. It's similar to why I think cricket in cricketing nations holds kind of a special, like Test cricket holds quite a special place in the hearts of the nations that play it, because it is so eccentric and it is so different.
Yeah, and
it does create kind of a special feeling. I think you'd lose a bit of the magic from the sport without the Lions. And that's not to say it's perfect, and I think there's things they could do to improve it, but by and large, I think it still holds a special enough place to be worthwhile doing. To your last point in terms of the coaching, look, I think lesser coaches would be tempted to withhold trade secrets, and I suspect there have been coaches in the past that will have done that. I don't get the impression that Andy Farrell's that kind of character. I think he's a competitor who wants to win what he's involved in, so I don't think he's going to hold anything back that he thinks would be a detriment to the Lions. What he probably does do is be very selective in terms of what he implements, not on the basis of withholding Irish trade secrets, but more in terms of, okay, what can I implement now that's going to be most effective, easiest to implement, and not going to confuse the squad. And actually, you've probably seen that process play out in real time over these tests. Yeah. You've seen some of the more complicated attacking structures maybe get simplified as they've refined down to the purest form what's going to be easiest to implement whilst being effective in a test match scenario. And I don't think that's the consideration would have been, well, what if we give this away, what are they going to do in the Six Nations? I think it's more, if we try and implement, let's say, for example, the Leinster and Irish style tap penalty moves, which are very intricate and very well rehearsed, on a time on the training pitch versus time in games and opportunities in games to implement basis. Is it worthwhile us doing this for maybe one or two opportunities over a test series to implement it, compared to actually let's just kick it to the corner and maul it, in a more simplistic way and implement that? I think that kind of thing is probably more the consideration rather than what should we hold back in case they go back to Steve Borthwick or Kevin Hastings or whatever and tell him all the behind the scenes stuff for Ireland. So wouldn't buy the argument that Andy Farrell's holding anything back there, but I do think there's special consideration as to what is worthwhile us doing at this point.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting point because, as you say, it is so eccentric and quirky that we have something like the Lions in this sport. And I will reiterate, I absolutely love it and I don't want it to go anywhere. But it does make you think, how does it endure the professional era as teams and nations seek to eke out every single marginal gain they can as the years move on? So it does just make it really quite interesting. Similar point, Rory. Going into the first test, does Farrell rely on his trusty Irish steeds, or does he select some of these Scottish, Welsh, and lone Welsh and English able horses that he's got already available? Does he pick Jack Van der Fleer because he knows what he gets with him? Does he go Morgan? Where do you think he lands? Because I've seen a few people in the old comment sections disagreeing over this and what's right and what works.
Well, I would like to think that Andy Farrell's a strong enough character to say he's going to pick the best available 15 based on performances and application of the game plan, and regardless of national affiliations. Now, if it came down to a 50-50 shot, if he thought on the balance of power there is nothing between these two, but I know he can implement this game plan based on what I've seen from in Ireland colours, maybe that will give them the edge. But that's only in the cases where there's a 50-50 shot. So let's say, for example, Bundy Aki versus Tuipulotu. If he thinks that's a 50-50 decision, on balance of power, might he choose Aki just on the basis that he knows how he will perform in that system? Maybe. And that's not necessarily the wrong decision, right? Because ultimately you're trying to win a test match rather than trying to create the best balance of national representation. But I don't think Andy Farrell would make a decision based on national affiliation alone. What I would probably say is, if you take each selection on their merits, I would say up until we see the test team, do we still think that test team is likely to be Irish dominated? Probably it will be, but that, as much as anything, I think it's going to be reflected on the performances on the tour as much as anything. Because there's plenty of Irish players that have more than held their hands up to say that they're the best in their position.
Yeah, statistically, there's more Irish there than any other nation, so it's going to happen.
Yeah, and statistically, Ireland have been the most successful nation in years out of the four available. So you can't really argue it on that basis. So, if you're looking at, let's say where there's real decisions to be made, 12, maybe that's a 50-50 call, but maybe Bernicki has the edge on that basis alone. Number 8, Jack Conan versus, say, Ben Earl. Both have had very good tours, both been very impactful, but Jack Conan probably gets the edge based on Lions experience and test match experience and an ability to work within that system. Van der Fleer maybe gets the edge on that basis as well, but, can anyone say that Van der Fleer's had a bad tour? Because I don't think he has. I think there's been a lot of good sevens, and there are a lot of good sevens on that tour, and all of them have got a good argument to start, more or less. But Van der Fleer may end up being the best option, and Andrew Porter or Ellis Genge. I would probably argue that Ellis Genge has been the more impactful, certainly with the ball in hand.
Yeah.
But Andrew Porter has plenty in the bank to suggest that he's worth starting, and strategically it might make sense to start him anyway. So I don't see an issue with it.
Could we see an entirely Irish pack bar Maro Itoje?
Conceivably, but I'm not sure that is going to bear out. I think to be honest, Chesham has proven his worth in the 6 shirt. And he's performed better than Tadhg Beirne. I think that's at this point that's an objective reality. I think Genge is more than within a shout to start at Lucid. I don't think 7's a foregone conclusion. So if it was an all Irish pack bar Maro Itoje, I think there'd be some eyebrows raised. I think you could easily justify it, but I'm not certain that's going to be the case.
No.
I think it will be Irish dominated, though.
I'm pretty sure it'll be Irish dominated. And like I said, I wouldn't be overly upset if that did happen. Like you say, there would be eyebrows raised, but as you say, I think each pick is justifiable within reason. Yeah. So it's not that wild. But it is an interesting time to see where Farrell goes with this squad for the first test. Because I think a lot rides on it, and as you mentioned, there's been a couple of call-ups to the squad as well to help fill in the midweek stuff. So, and a couple of those have led some question marks for Farrell. Some of them unjust, I think. Some of them, is Thomas Clarkson the right person to be calling in as a cover for prop? I don't know, but it is just for a midweek game. Does it devalue the Lions shirt? I don't know, because he's going to get a Lions cap number. I'm not saying he's not a bad player, but
there's different factors to it, right? I mean, part of it will be, you could probably have argued Joe. I mean, I would have argued Joe Hayes has probably earned that spot in terms of performance alone. But is there much additional value in that call up to the squad as a whole, other than a training partner and someone to fill out the midweek games? It's special for whoever gets selected, right? So that's not detriment to it. I think just from a squad perspective, I'm not sure it's that big a deal.
No, I don't think it's a big deal. But I think the question does linger of do these, and this isn't this tour specific, this isn't Farrell specific. We know Gatland have done it with previous tours, where
much more cynically as well.
Much more cynically, but does it devalue the Lions cap at all?
No, I don't think so. Look, I mean, if Tom Clarkson doesn't get selected for another Lions squad, and maybe plays 40 minutes in midweek games over the next few weeks as a off the bench player. It doesn't. People won't look back fondly on Tom Clarkson as a Lions player, or they won't think about it, because actually, unless Tom Clarkson suddenly starts for the Test team, which is
that'll be interesting.
Infinitely unlikely at this point. I don't think it makes any difference to how people will view the Lions. I think it's a bit of a media talking point at the moment, but actually in the broad perspective of how people feel about the Lions, I don't think it's too much of a problem, really.
No, I agree. And I also think... Sorry, carry on.
And if these selections end up making a 2%, 5% difference to the odds of us winning a Test series, it's the right call, isn't it? So it's as long as we win the Test series, this stuff's all just background noise.
Yeah. Ultimately, it is all about the Test series, and that's all that matters. And this isn't like for people moaning about it with it being Farrell. Like, this is not new to this tour. These calls have been in every single Lions tour that I've got memory of. Like, it just happens. You get injuries, you get players that become unavailable. You need a bit of cover, a little short term cover. So yeah, I think, like I say, it is a bit of media noise just to kind of fill that Lions void in those gaps where there's no games going on, especially this week because there's no midweek game. So if I was to put you on the spot, Rory, what's the starting 15 this Saturday?
For my money, I'd start Genge at loosehead, because I believe that he's going to have the most impact with the ball in hand, and I think the set piece, the scrum in particular, I think Genge is more than good enough scrummager, and I think to an extent the power of that Lions pack, that should really take care of itself. Sheehan's the two for me, nailed on. Tight heads, Furlong. I think Will Stewart had an opportunity to stake a claim for it, but actually probably over his last couple of games hasn't quite taken it.
I think also Furlong's looked good last couple of games as well.
And Furlong's looked good. He's really stepped up to it. So yeah. I would say Furlong starts. Itoje starts at 4. The questions around him at the start of the tour have dissipated as far as I'm concerned. He's absolutely stepped up to the plate.
Yeah.
McCarthy, his performances give him the absolute front running shirt to partner Itoje. Bigger question on who covers lock on the bench, if anyone does at all. Cummins has actually looked really good in his last couple of games after a tricky start to the tour. He looks a lot more assured. But will they have lock cover on the bench? Because for my money, Chesham plays 6, so maybe he goes as lock cover. So for me, I think Chesham has played his way into that starting 15. Line-out operations, but his general engine around the pitch, his ball carrying, underrated skill set. For me, he goes there. And I think Ty Byrne was obviously the front runner at the start of the tour, but just he's almost like snatched at the opportunity. He's tried to do too much in the moments he's had the ball, and has really not quite gone for him, which is a shame for him. But his opportunity won't entirely be gone. I'm sure he'll stake a claim to get back into the Test side. 7's a really difficult one. You could make a really good argument for almost anyone to start there, but on balance, I think just for the all-round game, I would just edge it to Tom Curry. But I'm not wedded to it, and I wouldn't be upset with it. I wouldn't be upset with anyone being selected there. Even Ben Earl, I think, has got a good claim to start in the back row.
Yeah, I think they've all put their hands up, to be fair.
Yeah, 100%. Number 8 for me has got to be Jack Conan. The Brumbies game, 17 carries for 76 metres, top tackler with 13, work rate, impact, tough as nails. He's got to be the number 8 for me. Most natural 8, and he's got the experience. He's started Test matches for the Lions before, and on top of everything else, he's got a fantastic moustache. And for me, the Lions as a historic entity on the British and Irish Isles needs a man with a top tash, and that for me gives him the edge. Yeah. Halfbacks sort themselves out. It's Gibson Park and Russell for me. Russell, I think, really impressed. Both sides of the ball. His tackling is actually what's impressed me the most.
Yeah, it's defensively brilliant.
We knew how good he was with the ball in hand. We knew how good he was. His physicality in defence has been so impressive, and it's not a side of the game that people talk about. so much, but the number of dump tackles I've seen him do on tour is just so impressed by that element of his game, and showing someone who's really, really up for it, really up for the challenge of a Lions tour. So those two are nailed on. I'm going to stick with Huey Pilotu in the centres, partly for the relationship with the Russell, and partly, I think Hugh Jones has earned that spot outright. Gary Ringrose has been really good. Obviously, he's concussed this weekend, so it's a bit of a foregone conclusion there. But I think Hugh Jones's performances have shown that he's the best option there. Tuipulotu and Aki, I think it's a bit of a 50-50 shot, but actually on balance, I think it makes more sense for me. I'm not going to be upset if Aki gets put there, but for my money, Tuipulotu gets it.
Yep.
Back three, I think James Lowe's sewn up left wing. The boot is a massive massive plus point to him on that, but also his ability to pop up in phase play, act as a first receiver, great running lines. I think he makes the difference. I think Van der Merwe, the game at the weekend, he showed what he's really capable of in terms of finishing tries and scoring a hat trick. But he's also shown where there are problems. Fielding kicks, really seems to struggle with that, making a few basic errors really there. And in what's going to be a tactical battle with a Joe Schmidt side, if you've got someone who's a weakness under a kick, they're just going to compound it. Particularly if they're missing their 10, they're going to try and get every opportunity or every advantage they can, and they'll just keep landing kicks on him. So, and if you've got someone like Suoli who can challenge him in the air, he's going to be Suoli's as tall, if not taller. Yeah, and probably, he'd be targeted. So for me, it's got to be James Lowe. Tommy Freeman gets the other wing. Mac Hansen's been really good, but I think Tommy Freeman's just edged it on performances, and with his physicality, both sides of the ball, I think that's really important. Finishes tries, as we know, he's a natural finisher. He's also got that ability to slot in 13 and 15 as well if needed. And then I think, assuming Kinghorn can play, I don't know if that's certain.
Don't know yet.
We don't know. But assuming Kinghorn can play, I still think he has to play 15.
Yeah.
I just think that makes the most sense. But if it ends up being Keenan, I think that's okay, but it's not ideal, because I'm not Keenan was fine at the weekend, absolutely fine. No, there was nothing wrong with his performance. But I think you lose a bit of the threat without Kinghorn there, plus the height, plus the ability to slot in at first receiver, and his boot.
Yeah.
So Keenan's an absolutely fine option there, but it's Kinghorn obviously is the first choice for me.
I think my starting 15 is more or less the same. I think the only thing, and as I say, all sevens have been very good, so I don't mind which way it goes. But I think I would have gone Jack Morgan personally, because I just think he's had an incredible tour.
I would be more than happy if Jack Morgan was picked. I really rate him. I really like Jack Morgan. I think Tom Curry gives you a little bit more in terms of he's a bit more of a natural line-out jumper, which might be useful.
Although, do you need it if you've got Chesham at 6?
Possibly not. That might be by the by. So maybe that gives Jack Morgan the edge if it's Chesham. I also think Curry's work rate, and this is nothing on Jack Morgan's work, phenomenal. But there was a moment when Curry was chasing down a kick from the backfield, and he was light years ahead of everyone else chasing the team, all the backs. I think that kind of work rate, and his natural speed, and just the fact that with Tom Curry, you're getting 110% in it as well. And again, that's not to say that you don't get that with Jack Morgan, but I just think if you combine all the factors, it's maybe only a 1 or 2% difference between the two. But that might be enough. But again, I am not wedded to the 7 shirt goes to, because I think they're all great options there.
Yeah, as I said, I don't mind where it lands. Okay, who wins the first test?
Lions, I think. I think the Wallabies will come with a very specific game plan. I do think it'll be a tight one. I suspect they'll come with a very Joe Schmidt style game plan to target a specific part of the Lions, maybe under the high ball, probably at kickoff where they've shown some issues there, probably at the line out where it's potentially still a little bit squirrely in terms of all of the mechanics lining up. But if you go man for man across the the likely Wallabies side and like the Lions test team that we've just talked about, I think the Lions edge it in the pack in terms of power, in terms of threat both sides of the ball, and in terms of their bench options as well. Impact off the bench, I think the Lions will be very strong there. And in the back line, Wallabies always have great attacking moves. They're always exciting to watch. That's one of the reasons why they're so below. But half back, I think, is going to be a weakness for them. I think JGP and Russell are by far and away the stronger of the two half-back pairings. I would pick Nick White if I was Joe Schmidt. I'm not sure he will, but I would pick Nick White. 10, it sounds like it's going to be Tom Liner, who's obviously came through the Queen's Academy, really highly rated, son of Michael Liner, so 22 years old, something like that. He's obviously a talented player, but I suspect he's going to struggle in a setup where he's going to have whoever the Lions pick at 7, be it Curry, be it Morgan, be it Van der Fleer, Huey Pilotu running at him, Russell putting the strings around him. I think he could get overawed by the occasion. And on the balance, I think in the back three, the Lions have got a little bit more stardust there, assuming Kinghorn in particular starts.
Yeah.
I just think on balance, the Lions edge it. My gut feel is the Lions will edge this week by 5, and then grow into the series. And I actually am now more inclined to think it'll be 3-0.
Oh, welcome to the club, Rory.
Yeah.
3-0 is where it's at. 3-0 is where it's at. Obviously, we will reconvene next week to fully analyse the game on the weekend. But for now, Rory, we need to move on. We need to move on because although we could talk Lions all day long, we also like to talk about England rugby.
We certainly do.
What did you make of the second test versus Argentina? A very different spectacle, I'd say, to the first test.
I really, really enjoyed this. I think as much as the first test, actually, for different reasons. I thought it was almost a reverse of the way the first test went, where this week England came out of the traps pretty fast. Were quite unlucky not to be ahead at home. A bounce of the ball off the post aside, they would have been. Played really, really good rugby, though, I thought, in that first half. Were a bit profligate in the 22 throughout the game, really. They didn't take the opportunities in the same way, but really good pressure. Really good pressure applied to the Argentinian defence. Great defence by and large. I would say that off the back of this tour, some players have really emerged as not just options, but test match animals.
Has Seb Atkinson played himself into the 12 shirt for England?
He couldn't have done any more, I don't think. Obviously scored a try. His handling ability has been really on show. That he's got the really great ability to take the ball to the line and pull it back when needs to. He's got the physicality to carry into traffic. He's a big lad. He's got an amazing engine on him. I mean, his engine is astounding.
Well, Broncos.
Yeah. I mean, breaking GPS records in England training is not a simple task. I don't think he could have done any more to prove, if not a top 12 option, the best 12 option. Tom Roebuck, so impressed by him on this tour. I think if you were Manny Bosa, you'd be, that red card was even worse now. Because it's going to be tough to ship Roebuck out of that shirt now. And with Roebuck and Freeman as your wing options, you've got a couple of players who can not only finish tries, they can collect the ball in the air and set tries up. Really good all-round skill sets. There's a really exciting option for them on the wings there. But for me, there's two men that come out of this tour as true test match animals. First is Tom Willis, once again.
Just immense.
I was watching Tom Willis and I thought, I wonder if Andy Farrell's watched this and thought, I really should have picked him because he'd be really useful on this tour.
Imagine him in the back of that pack.
Yeah. Just the way he carries, just like an absolute rhino. I love it. and he just loves the contact, doesn't he?
There was one particular carry where we've described it in the past, where he's just like pointy elbows, pointy knees, just so awkward. And there was one particular run where it just looked like the Argentinian defenders were just really not looking forward to going into that contact, and they were just bouncing off him.
You would hate to tackle him.
Yeah.
He's got to be best part of 120 clicks.
Yeah. He's a big guy.
He's quick for his size.
Yeah.
And he carries with real intent. He's almost got that Henry Tuilagi carrying with hate mentality in him, and that is as high a praise.
That's nothing but a compliment.
That is as high a praise as I can give to anyone carrying a ball. Same intent as Henry Tuilagi. You are test match ready. I thought Tom Willis comes out of the late shirt sewn up, even with the likes of Ben Earl to come back. I don't see anyone shifting him from that shirt, really.
I wouldn't put that shirt on anyone else at the moment.
No. But the other one who's put his hand up and said, "This should be my shirt," is one Mr. George Ford. Not only
he's so good.
Not only outperforming his opposite number, not only pulling the strings from, I think outperforming both England options on the Lions tour. Finn Smith, I think, is coming off the boil a little bit. Marcus is struggling to make. George Ford just proves game in, game out why he's so good.
I think his game management is better than any other 10. I think. Thinking of any 10, I don't think there's a better one at game management than him at the moment.
Who picks better options than George Ford at the moment? No. It's just another phenomenal performance from him. Just pulling the strings. I would say Ben Spencer has proved why everyone believes he's so criminally underrated by England coaches. Him and George Ford look phenomenal together. Obviously, had a bit of a prior relationship, but he's pulled the strings in that 9 shirt really well, kicked really well, making the right decisions as you'd expect.
So does Borthwick does he have a decision to make here and think, I'm just going to gear this squad to the next World Cup and the next World Cup alone? Because let's face it, Spencer and Ford aren't going beyond this World Cup cycle. Does he put all of his eggs in one basket and say, look, Finn Smith, look, Alex Mitchell, look, whoever else, I'm going to stick with Spencer and Ford off the back of this because they are giving us the game management my game plan needs. So we're going to stick with them up to the World Cup, then your chance will come after that. Or do we still look at Finn Smith, Alex Mitchell, Van Portfleet, whomever else is in the equation, and think with one eye to the future as well still?
Well, it's the $1 million question, isn't it? And this is what Borthwick gets paid to make decisions on. Because that for me is the binary choice. Spencer and Ford, Mitchell and Smith. I don't actually have a strong preference other than how much I love George Ford. But Mitchell and Smith dovetail really well in Six Nations.
Yeah.
I would say everything has to be now geared towards how do we win the next one. Now, there's a good argument that you need someone like Finn Smith who's got defensive options. He's, let's be honest, Finn Smith is a very good game manager on his day. And, yes, he's not performing as well as you'd expect in the Lions shirt, but that could be for any number of factors.
I think that's I think the way Australia's defence, it seems every single one of the teams they faced have come with the same defensive pattern, which is to basically enclose the 10 and give them not very many options. And I think that's maybe brought Finn a bit of a surprise, maybe, and he's just not had that extra split second decision making, maybe, and he's just been caught out.
Well, he also doesn't have Furbank and Freeman and Dingwall running off him in the same way.
Exactly.
So the Lions aren't playing necessarily to Finn Smith's strengths there.
Yeah.
And
I think that's what it is. Like defensively, I still think he's been incredible, but I think it's just the going forward bit. He may have been caught out a little bit.
Yeah, he has, and actually, probably what he will take away from this tour is what I need to be better at is when I don't have the options, what decision do I make? Because I think that's where he's struggling, and maybe it's not a problem he's had to face consistently up to this point, because the way that Northampton have played, the way that England have played has brought out those strengths in him, but maybe he needs to be ready for when those weapons are taken away from him, and he hasn't been.
So all the other Premiership coaches just don't pay attention to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But of those two halfback options, I'd be happy either way. I suspect I think they'll stick with Mitchell and Smith, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Mitchell and Spencer and Ford on the bench.
It's not a bad option.
To
close out games,
which I'm fine with. Okay. Outside of that, I mean, Joe Hayes, I think, has really put his hand up and said, "I'm a Test match player," and really pleased for him because, I said right at the start of this pod, we questioned whether Joe Hayes would be the right man at international level. It's the origins of the DPRFR, and he's more than answered those questions with his performances this year for England. Really come of age.
Yeah.
So really pleased for him. Charlie Ewells, I think, has had a bit of a redemption arc and probably put his hand up to say, I'm still here as a second row option, which is good. It's really good enforcer because actually outside of George Martin, the other enforcer option, Charlie Ewells. So to have him in the mix is it's so valuable to England moving forwards, because when they go up against the likes of South Africa and France with massive packs, they're going to need big enforcer options. And actually, if they could pick a pack that has Ewells in the second row and George Martin, suddenly you start thinking they can compete physically here. These are options that are now on the table, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
The 7 shirt, I am no closer to coming up with an answer there. I mean, you try and pick from that selection.
Yeah, it's the same debate we just had with Lions. It's the same in the England shirt at the moment. The options.
Underhill was brilliant. Ben Curry was brilliant. Guy Pepper was brilliant. Ben Earl's been brilliant in Australia. Tom Curry's always brilliant. Pollock is brilliant. Just those 6 alone. How do you square that circle? I don't know.
No idea. No idea how you solve that one.
No idea whatsoever. But it's a great problem to have.
It is. I guess the only scary thing is I think that number of players fitting into that category may only go up.
Well, imagine if Jack Willis comes back to the Premiership. What do you do then?
Yeah.
You just pick 8 number 7s in your team and just go, look, we're just going to play 7s. They're all our best players.
Hey, we're all about 15 hybrids.
Yeah, exactly.
15 hybrid forward backs. See how it goes. Yeah, but ultimately, what a positive tour to Argentina. England picking up what was quite a questionable looking trophy at the end. Looked like it may have been acquired off of Temu and had.
Yeah, well, you got to get them somewhere.
One of those temporary label makers to put the sign on it, but that's fine. It still counts. It's still a trophy in the cabinet. I think.
Let's be honest about it. We thought going into this tour we did 2-0.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be really tough. Like, considering the opposition, where it is, where they've gone. I know Argentina haven't been full strength, but nor have England. So yeah, I've been incredibly impressed, and I really want to see some news come out where they're going to be keeping on Lee Blackett and Byron McGrigan going forward, because I think they've obviously been doing some good work. So yeah,
I mean,
any changes to the team going against USA? I expect there will be some. There's been a few.
Yeah, I would mix it up. I mean, the USA side is pretty weak. I think they lost to Spain at the weekend.
They did, yeah.
I would give everyone else a go. And just see, treat it almost like an A game fixture and say, look, you're going to get a cap here, but this is your opportunity to just put a little bit of a marker down as to what you could have done if we'd given you the option. Yeah. And also, it's an opportunity to rest some frontline players who've had a lot. So I would expect the likes of Charlie Atkinson, Max Ajomo, Oscar Beard,
Arthur Clarke,
Ted Hill, Arthur Clarke. I would expect to see a lot of them get an opportunity and get a chance to at least show on the, well, let's say the big stages on rugby-packed TV, so the medium stage that might not work, show what they can do. But
is there crime going on, Rory?
Yes,
in Essex.
There's always crime.
Surprise. There's
always crime in Essex. That's always a given. The game on Saturday it could just be a bit of fun for them, really, as much. Just go out and run the ball, see how you do. I don't expect it to be much of a contest, if I'm honest. I'd be amazed if it was.
But I'm going to enjoy trying to watch it on rugby-packed TV. Let's see how that goes.
I love watching pixelated rugby.
The fact it's on at 10 p.m, I'm hoping a lot of people aren't going to bother, so there shouldn't be the same problems we had with the other game. We'll see. Now, we are tight for time, Rory. But I wanted to ask about the Premiership because we've seen in all the social media this week that sides are coming back for pre-season. So the question I want to ask you, who are the winners and losers in this summer's recruitment? What teams are looking stronger? What teams haven't done enough?
Winners, Bath, obviously, with their ever-expanding squad. They look like they're kicking on to another level next with the likes of Arundel, Carreras, Chris Harris. I would expect to see Bath really kick on this season, particularly with some of the young players they got coming through. Hopefully we'll see the likes of, say, Billy Seller get a run out. Plenty of really good young players. Kepi Tuipulotu, I would hope to see get a bit of game time and start playing a bit of men's. So Bath I would expect to kick on and be right up the top again. People will accuse me of bias. I think Gloucester have recruited really well. Will Joseph, I'm really excited by. Ross Byrne, I think is a really good pickup at 10. Ben Redshaw looks a really exciting prospect in the back three. Ben Loader, another one. Venter in the back row. A few good sort of squad filler pickups as well. So I'm hoping Gloucester will kick on and make a real top four title challenge next season. We'll see. It's always Gloucester's year next year, so maybe this time it'll be true.
Yeah, heard that before.
Yeah. Chiefs are an interesting prospect, made some interesting signings. I think they'll improve. Northampton, don't know. A bit 50-50 on whether Northampton will improve because they still small. I think it's all going to depend on their injury rate.
You cut out there.
Northampton, I don't know. I think they've recruited quite well, but they still seem to have quite a small squad. I think it will all depend on their injury record next season as to how well they compete.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about the recruitment of Northampton. I think we've signed players in the positions we need. So Fischetti as a prop, JD Van der Mechst, who we've signed, who's a ginormous lock. I think Callum Chick is going to be reviewed as incredibly shrewd, smart signing. Bello as kind of a backup fly half that we've shown that we've needed when we've been really lacking fly halves. We definitely do have a smaller squad. Like they released their full squad picture the other day, and I was like, there's only 2 fly halves in that squad. There's only 5 centres, and 3 of them are academy players. It's a little bit threadbare, but there are a lot of players that cover multiple positions. So it's not as bad as it sounds or looks. But again, we showed last season what injuries can do to a top squad. Like even if you've got a top squad, injuries can really derail your season. So hopefully that doesn't happen again.
I mean, gut feel is Northampton have probably signed to replace rather than signed to bolster. Bellew aside,
Van der Mechst is a step up, I'd say.
Yeah, but is he bolstering the squad or is he replacing the likes of Laws and Ribbons that maybe weren't replaced before?
Well,
we'll see. I think
from last season.
That's true. I would say if Northampton can keep as much of their first 15 fit, then they'll challenge.
Yeah.
Quins, I don't think have done enough. Leicester, I don't think have done enough yet.
No, the question marks remain whether they've finished their recruitment, because obviously they've done like a mad dash announcing it all quite recently. Probably a lot of them had been lined up already, but I was expecting a bit more stardust than there has been.
Yeah,
it's only fueled the speculation in my mind around the rumours around where they're going to go for 10. Because all the 10s they've signed are 1-year deals and aren't really players that I see being long-term options for them at 10. And there's, from a Northampton perspective, a very annoying rumour that keeps circulating around Leicester, circling around Finn Smith, that I really hope will get put to bed at some point soon. Mr. Dowson, if you're listening. So I think Morrow, the Argentinian back row player, he looks like he might be a smart signing for them.
I think that smart signing. I mean, I say we're accused of not giving Leicester their due. When they made the final last season, we constantly questioned them, and we were broadly wrong, really. Still question marks to me there, though. Bristol have got a tiny squad. I think they're going to struggle over the course of the season.
I think they're in the same boat as Northampton, that if they get one too many injuries, they're going to struggle.
Sale, I think, will be stronger.
Yeah.
Sale has signed well, I think.
They have. They've been far more frugal in the market than I thought they were going to be. They've not gone out and splashed the cash wildly. They've done some real smart pickups. I think Jabulu's a really good pickup for them.
I think Jabulu. I think your man from Chiefs, Vermeulen to replace Dupria. I think that's a good pickup. I don't think they needed a huge amount more. Have a better start to the season than they do typically. If they start the season well, I think go on to challenge. Newcastle, we're just in limbo, waiting to find out if this Red Bull.
I'm worried for
all gone quiet. All gone very quiet on that front.
Their pre-season started. There's been a number of players leaving, and there's been just the sole Ethan Grayson in. If they don't replace Blamire, Chick, Stevenson, Radwan, there's a lot who have left them. They don't replace them. I'm not sure how they can expect to be competitive.
I'm not sure they can expect to stay in the Premiership. I don't think they've got enough players.
It is a worry. I fear we might be seeing a lot of the Newcastle Academy. Ahead. So
it could be some real massacres in the northeast, which I really hope is not the case.
No, I really, it does worry me slightly because we hope for a bastion of Northern rugby. That rumour around the Red Bull deal being signed, sealed, and delivered hasn't come to fruition yet. If it has, announce it and just go nuts, people. Come on. There's still some players out there who, as far as I'm aware, haven't got clubs. Yeah,
some good players. So
I
hope that
still not landed somewhere, as far as I'm aware.
I really hope that gets done soon because I do want to see some upticks there. But from that alone, I think next season's Premiership looks very competitive at the top. I think you could see Bath, Northampton, Bristol, Leicester, Gloucester, Sale, all Saracens. We haven't talked about Saracens. I mean, so I would say there's 7 very competitive teams plus Quins could well improve next season. I'm iffy on whether they will. I think they've made some okay signings, but I'm not sure they've vastly improved their squad from where it was. But Quins have proved people wrong in the past. And I think Chiefs will improve as well. So it could be that 9 of 10 teams are all sparring quite well, and we hope that Newcastle join them soon enough.
Well, I really hope they don't just be the whipping boys, where it's just guaranteed 5-pointer regardless, and you can run your academy kids out. We'll see. So, Roy, I've asked to ask you of the new joiners to the league. So I'm not talking your likes of Santi Carreras, who are known quantities for us. Of the new players coming to the league, what 3 players are you most excited seeing running out in the Gallagher Premiership, or Prem Rugby, should I say?
Is it Len Ikitau down at Chiefs?
Yeah.
I really like him. I think he could be very exciting to watch. Big question. I'm interested to see, from a very selfish point of view, I'm interested to see how well Ross Byrne takes to Gloucester. Because that could really make it. That's a big difference maker for how that team performs.
How he links up with Thomas could be really interesting.
100%. I think this Van der Mesh that Northampton have signed, the size of him. I think if Northampton can get him in a shape that will work for a long Premiership season, someone that size. We remember how good Will Skelton was. Someone who could have that kind of impact could be very, very interesting indeed.
He's from again selfish reasons, very excited because the prospect of him being first or second receiver, Henry Pollock on his shoulder. Because I spent a lot of time watching his highlight videos. He's got excellent hands for 145 kilogram South African. So his distribution looks very good. He looks for the offload, and the way Saints play, that could work so well. And I think he'll be picking up a lot of the carrying that we're losing with Augustus. So I'm excited by it.
Yeah, I think him and someone with like the work rate of Callum Chick. If you have Van der Mesh, Callum Chick, Pollock, and Pearson all in the same pack, and Alex Coles actually, you start looking at that back five and start thinking that's a back five in a pack that could really make a difference. So Northampton will be very, very excited about that prospect. And then just as a returning player, I'm interested. Probably a bit of a
Start from returning player. I didn't hear who you said.
And then from a returning player, I am interested to see how Arundel goes. A bit of a probably disappointing stint in France by and large, but I mean he'll have learnt. Still very young, still got all those raw talents that we saw when he was. You know, I could see him kicking on quite quickly under Johan van Graan. So
there's probably not a better environment to be in to pick that back up again. So it is an interesting one to see how he goes. And are there any players that maybe not new to the league, but early days? Are you expecting any breakthrough players that maybe not many fans will have much idea on, but may by the end of the season could be like Iliaioni this year? That everyone knows what Iliaioni is about this now because of the year he's had. Arthur Clarke, for example. Is there anyone you've got your eye on?
Well, for Gloucester, I've really got my eye on Ben Red. Really impressed by him in the under-20s. He's obviously had a few opportunities with Newcastle and done some good bits with them, but if Gloucester continue that same style of play, if he plays quite a bit this season, which I'd expect him to, he could really thrive. An interesting one. I would be interested to see how many young players start to break through at Saracens.
I want to see Olamide, Shadike get some.
I want to see Shadike. I want to see the Bracken boys get some game time. If those sort of players start to break through, I suddenly start to look very excited, which would be nice, wouldn't it? It's difficult to predict because you never know who's going to quite make that quick step up. I'd love to say Tuipulotu, but actually, how much exposure will he get with Tom Dunn there and with Dan Frost they've just signed?
They got too many hookers.
Yeah, maybe he won't get as much opportunity as I would like, but he might do. We'll see. Possibly looking at the likes of whether Rob Burrow maybe starts to get a look in.
Tom Burrow. Sorry,
Rob Burrow was the much beloved and sadly departed rugby league player. Apologies. Who I really rate him for the under-20s. I think he's got real leadership qualities, so I'd like to see him get a look at. And we saw a bit of him at the end of last season. I hope if everything aligns at Newcastle, I'd love to see Joe Davis really start flying at 9 for Newcastle because he looks like a man who's got raw talent to burn.
Hopefully he gets the opportunity to show that talent.
Let's see.
It's hard if you're just, taking kickoffs every 5 minutes. We'll see. I'm on board with all of those, Rory. I'm on board with all of those. I think the only one I'd add, and we spoke about him in the past, I have a feeling Ewan Richards might become a bit of a common name even outside of Bath rugby. I think he's going to get more game time next year with Bath.
Yes, that's a very good one. That's a very good one. And actually, you could probably make the argument that maybe the least stable area for Bath. He's got an opportunity to stake a claim there.
Yeah, I think so. I think they've deliberately not recruited there because of how good and how much they rate him. So I think that's one to watch. But we can talk about the future Prem rugby stuff in many more episodes to come, Rory. Now, we're tight for time, so what we're going to do is we're going to round off the under-20s in next week's pod because I think it justifies a bit more than the time we've got available to us. So, Rory, for now, we will bring an end to episode 29, and that means one thing and one thing only, Rory, and that is, what is your final thought?
Lions! Lions! Lions!
I'm pretty sure you've used that one already, but that's okay. We thoroughly enjoyed talking for your listening pleasure. By all means, come back and join us next week. And if you're not already, find us on our social media stuff. See you soon.